Welcome to 5 Good Questions. I'm your host, Jake Taylor. Our guest today is Andrew Orr. Andy holds both bachelor's and master's degrees in English and loves all things science fiction. He's the author of Jett Smith and the Alien Grave. He dreams of one day visiting space and also wonders when humans are going to set foot on Mars. Let's ask him 5 good questions. Hi, welcome back, everybody. Special guest today is Andy Orr. Hey, Andy, where are we talking to you today?
So we are live from Auburn, Washington. It's a suburb just south of Seattle.
Excellent.
Beautiful sunny day.
Nice. So today's a little bit of a different book than what we usually have on this program. And normally we've been sticking to business and investing, but this one is a kind of a special case. And the reason why we have Andy on today is that he wrote a book that's actually designed to inspire kids to dream bigger dreams about science and technology. And I personally feel that that's a really important mission for our species to keep advancing. So that's a big part of why we have Andy on today. So Andy, you ready for our 5 good questions? Yeah,
I am ready. And thank you for that introduction, by the way. I honestly could have not said it better myself.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right. So question number 1, what was your inspiration for writing a kid's book about, science and specifically exploring Mars? And what was it that you were hoping to accomplish with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess the answer is 2 parts. So one of the motivations behind writing a book of this nature, a science fiction novel for kids, for middle grade readers, was vicarious wish fulfillment. As a boy, I was obsessed with all things science fiction. I loved frontier narratives in whatever form they took. And I think, again, one of the motivations was kind of living vicariously through a 12-year-old boy who lives on Mars and who doesn't just live there, who was actually born there. So this significant character who really kind of embodies the expansion of humanity in the solar system. So vicarious wish fulfillment. Yeah, absolutely. But the second motivation is along the lines of what you've already said, and that was to use the vehicle of story to get kids thinking about science, technology, engineering, and math, to get them excited about subjects which drive the innovation that's needed to have all of these amazing adventures, to send rockets to the moon, to send orbiters to comets, to send people to Mars eventually. I have this sense that in many ways we've stopped dreaming. We landed on the moon in 1969. That was only about 65 years after the first airplane, so there's a tremendous amount of innovation. But something happened after 1969. We put boots on the moon. We went back. NASA forecasted we would have people on Mars by 1980 at that rate. But something happened. And so, to use the expression, I think in many ways we stopped dreaming. So maybe a book, not just this book, but maybe books of this nature can be one tool for motivating kids to get excited about science, technology, those
great.
Sorts of topics.
Yeah. That segues nicely to question number 2. And this speaks to there's been people that have put forth this idea that technology has been slowing down, especially in the world of things. Peter Thiel is a good example of somebody who's talked about this. And his basic argument is that we can't get from point A to point B any faster than we could in the 1970s. We can't, like a whole bunch of things in the physical world haven't really been progressing as much, especially if you look at that, early 1900s all the way till, 1969 on the moon.
Right.
And then the world of computers has definitely been progressing, with Moore's law continuing. But I think it's gotten so bad that now when we talk about technology, we're specifically talking about computer and information technology usually. We're not talking about the physical world, technology.
Exactly.
Do you agree with that thesis that Peter Thiel and others have put forward? I mean, does that make you less or hopeful for the future? I mean, how do we How do you think about that?
Yeah, yeah. So yes, I absolutely agree with the argument. We used to dream about orbiting hotels and rockets to Mars, and instead we have Foursquare and Twitter.
Yeah.
Not that those aren't valuable tools in their own way, but again, in a lot of ways, we stopped dreaming. Again, getting back to that forecast, we were supposed to be on Mars by 1980. Look, we have an advance. We've sent some rovers. We have explored, but I think the pace of that exploration has slowed down tremendously. So yeah, it's so interesting. Not to get too classical on you, but there's a common conceit from the ancient Greek and Roman poets that man walks upright on 2 feet so that he can contemplate the stars, so that he can think about his place in the cosmos. But I was just at the park the other day, and everyone had their nose in a phone.
Sure.
And so I think that's a really interesting image of maybe we are so fixated with these fun computing tools that we use every day, and that which enrich life, to be fair. But in a lot of ways, I think we're not looking up as we should, as we used to. So yeah, I think it's a pretty sound argument. And I think Peter Thiel, I think the image of, he holds up an iPhone and says, this isn't the same thing as going to the moon. And it isn't.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. I don't know how he came up with that.
But yeah, and your second question kind of built into that is, am I hopeful for the future? And I would say yes. I think I am hopeful because there are some interesting people and some interesting companies and even nonprofits that have the vision. Elon Musk is a fantastic example. I'm a huge SpaceX fan.
So much that you're wearing a shirt for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So yeah, let me plug SpaceX. Recently, I went on a tour of their rocket assembly factory down in Hawthorne, California. It was a tremendous experience. They were a fantastic host. And while I was there, I got my Occupy Mars T-shirt. So just to plug SpaceX, if you go to SpaceX.com, you can get an awesome shirt just like this. But yeah, I love that vision. And SpaceX and Elon Musk, the vision is to send people to Mars eventually. They're developing a lot of interesting rocketry and capsule technology, and they have some amazing contracts with NASA. But eventually, they want to take us to Mars. There are other visionaries out there. Jeff Bezos with his Blue Origin, headquartered nearby, actually, here in Washington, in Kent. Recently I read a Wired article which talked about a startup which is taking, getting back to Elon Musk, his idea for a Hyperloop super speed train, and they're actually kind of beginning to run with that a little bit. So there are some exciting things happening, fast speed rail, suborbital tourist rockets, and visions to go to Mars eventually. NASA has a Mars mission on the books finally. I think it's early 2030s. So it's on NASA's radar to put boots on the red planet. So yes, I am hopeful, but I think to really drive that vision, you need to get people on board with it. You need to get the public on board with it. So I think we have some work to do. I think we can accelerate some of that innovation if people are excited about it, everyday people.
Yeah, and that's one thing I liked about your book. That I have to, I should tell now that I read it with my oldest son, which was a pretty fun experience. And he was so into it. I mean, just talking about Mars after that. And what were some of the coolest facts that you learned about Mars and while you were doing research for the book, and how did you incorporate those into the book? Yes,
great question. So yeah, I did a lot of homework. This is a children's science fiction novel, but I put in quite a bit of time into reading some of the literature out there about what it would actually take to put people on Mars in a permanent capacity. And so the book does have some supernatural, I guess you could call them, elements, but it is grounded in fact in a lot of interesting ways. So yeah, some of the interesting things I learned about Mars. Yes, it's far away. Yes, it's really cold. It hardly has an atmosphere, so it's just pounded with radiation. But in a lot of other ways, it is a suitable destination for humans to live. For one, it's got a similar axial tilt, to Earth. It actually has seasons. It has polar ice caps, which means there is water on Mars, albeit frozen. It is really cold, but it's not like Pluto cold. Okay.
Yeah.
Also its average day is about a little over 24 hours and 39 minutes, I believe. So the cycle itself is really suitable for humans. So there are a lot of interesting features about the planet, which make it a destination for us to land. The gravity is kind of an issue. It's about 40% the gravity of Earth. So if you weigh 100 pounds on Earth, you're going to weigh about 40 pounds on Mars. So, that can create some complications over the long term. You might develop some osteoporosis if you don't exercise quite a bit. So in the book, for example, there's a small chapter which discusses the rigorous exercise regimen that every Martian colonist has to adhere to make sure their muscles remain strong and their bones don't become brittle. Yeah, I tried to incorporate as much of the fact of what it might take to actually put people on Mars into the book itself, and to have Jett Smith, the lead character, reflect on that as he's telling the story. I didn't want to just dump a bunch of data on readers, so I tried to make it, which is the temptation, but one of the deadliest, or my editor would always tell me, show, don't tell. And I think that's a really fantastic piece of advice for writing fiction. You have to show readers, you can't just tell them. And so kind of one of the tightropes I had to walk was, convey some of the science without just turning it into a report, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So question number 4. When do you think that we're likely to get to Mars as a species? Actually, I have a human step forward.
It's exciting to think about that, right? I mean,
do you think that the first person to step on Mars is alive today? Like some people have speculated?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So to kind of backtrack, we should have been there in 1980. In the alternate history of my book, we get there by 2018. So we're probably not going to hit that.
Yeah.
NASA does have a manned mission to Mars planned for the early 2030s. So if anything, I'm pretty confident we're going to put a man, and hopefully a woman too, on Mars by the early 2030s. So that definitely is within your lifetime, my lifetime. That person is alive today. I'm very confident of that.
That's good. And then let's do our number 5 question, and that's is this book a good gift for that special kid in your life? I mean, that's kind of that's the target audience. It's not really, I mean, I enjoyed reading it as an adult with my kid, but it's definitely for kids. And so
exactly. Yeah, so I think the optimal audience is readers age 8 to 13, 8 maybe to 14. It would make a good gift, I think, for any kid who is interested in the stars, interested in rockets and spaceships and aliens, spacesuits and rovers. I think it would be of interest to girls as well. The story does feature some strong female characters who really are working alongside their male counterparts. So I really, gender equity was kind of an important motivation of the book as well, especially getting back to the motivation of getting kids excited about science, technology, engineering, and math. We need more women working in those fields. For example, 18% of, we'll talk about computer science, only 18% of computer science majors are females. So we need a lot more females in these areas of inquiry and study. So young girls also. I think really the book might also be of interest to middle school, so that could be elementary or middle school teachers. The book was not written, but one of my partners was a 5th grade teacher down in Southern California, and she actually kind of implemented the book in her classroom as a kind of test to see how kids responded to it. And out of that experience, we kind of co-created a study guide, which is a companion that goes along with the book, and it's in the back, it's free with purchase of the book. And it kind of incorporates some writing activities, some question and answer exercises that a teacher could incorporate if they wanted to do a lesson on the solar system, well, you've got a novel that your students could be reading through, which kind of dovetails into some of the topics that you would be covering in that curriculum. So it might be of interest to teachers who are looking for a story to incorporate into curriculum at their school.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
That's
So,
really
getting back to the whole motivation of the book, it was vicarious wish fulfillment. So, anyone who likes a good frontier narrative, anyone who likes a good father-son story, which is, Jett's relationship with his father, who is an astrophysicist, I think it'll resonate with folks who enjoy, that sort of thing as well.
That's great. No, one last thing that we always ask everybody, and that's for a book recommendation. So this one, what do you have for us today? Yeah, so I'm going to keep in keeping with the Red Planet theme. A book I just finished reading would be Andy Weir's The Martian. And this came out in 2013. It was a New York Times bestseller, so a lot of people have already read it. But for those of you out there who have not, I would highly recommend it. It is a harrowing survival story set in the not too distant future. So it's a contemporary story about not the first, but a manned mission to Mars that goes awry. And what we end up is a stranded astronaut who has to survive on Mars for about 18 months to 2 years while he waits for a rescue attempt. The story is just overflowing with scientific realism. It's really funny. It's a great adventure, kind of a Robinson Crusoe on meets Mars. So Andy Weir's The Martian, fantastic read. That's great. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, very good.
Well, Andy, we really appreciate you coming on today and offering this kind of different, unique perspective for us.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and we'll be chatting soon.
All right, thanks.
Okay, bye.